You're getting frustrated, wondering if this stuff will ever end. And doing all this self-growth, healing work, maybe going to therapy, books, videos, and some of it's kind of getting a little bit better, but the bigger things aren't really shifting. Still dealing with fear responses and shutdown and patterns you can't seem to shake. And so you're sitting there wondering, is all of this for nothing? Am I just stuck this way? But what if it's much easier than you think it is? Because you might be putting all of your time and attention on the wrong things. So let me show this to you, because a lot of people spend years focusing on symptoms and they never actually address the wounds underneath. So let's look at something that might be a little bit unusual. Architecture. So when you look at this kind of stone wall I drew up here, we have this nice little arch. And in architecture, they would tell you that the strongest part of the arch is right here, this stone in the middle, referred to as a keystone. You see, you have all of these bricks or stones on top, all converging, and they all weigh however much they weigh. It almost doesn't make sense that this arch works. But what happens is that all of this pressure and force is coming down on this arch, and because of this stone, all of that force is getting pushed out all the way to the ground and the proper foundation. You see, this is the same way trauma works. Most people are spending their time working on surface level symptoms. So you might have something like addiction, or somebody's trying to get over their anxiety, or they just trying to get rid of their depression. They're spending all their time, how do I get rid of this symptom I'm dealing with? And they're spending all of their time trying to dismantle this entire wall here by one stone after another. And you're spending all of this time trying to do healing work, feeling like it will never end. Because this is a lot of work if you remove this stone by stone. But any good architect will tell you, well, just knock out the keystone. You see, if you knock out this stone right here, all of this will collapse in. And that's really what we want to do with trauma work. We want to focus on your core wounds, or what I call your keystone trauma. So before we go any further, let's look at what a keystone trauma really is. Keystone traumas. So we're really going to have three categories here. First, we're going to have your mind. And this is really your thoughts, beliefs, any stories you might have from any trauma that's come up in your life. So to be clear, we're not talking about the actual event or events that happened. We're talking about the internal impact, the effect that had on you internally, and those thoughts and stories that you ultimately formed because of this thing happening to you. So second, we're going to have your body. And this really comes down to feelings and your nervous system state. So any type of fear response that might come up, maybe if you're in a situation and you get triggered, that jolt you feel, it's going to be what's going on with your body. And then third, we're going to have behavior. And this is really going to be your actions and ongoing patterns that you've adapted to in order to keep yourself safe and not feeling pain to whatever degree, typically emotionally, but obviously it could be physically as well. And there are a lot of other layers we can look at with this, But that's kind of outside of the scope of this video, so I will be making another video going more in depth on this. But for now, we're going to keep it very simple to keystone trauma is made up of your mind, your body, and your behavior. So let's look at a very simple explanation of this, and we can take something like the world isn't safe. And that is the core belief, the story that you've come up with in your mind based on whatever traumatic thing might have happened in your life. So, how does that show up in the body? And that's where you get to things like hypervigilance, or you're getting flooded, or you just feel like I need to get out of here and you avoid situations. And then you have the behavioral pattern. And that's going to show up by scanning the room, never feeling safe for just being super watchful. It can show up as trying to control things and people pleasing. So those three things are going to be constantly reinforcing one another. This is why so many people feel frustrated with healing work and personal growth, is because they're trying to change their behavior, but they're not looking at the body. So the nervous system is still getting triggered while you're trying to change this behavior, and so nothing happens because these parts of you are actually speaking to one another. So if you try to change a behavior, but you have this belief that the world isn't safe while you're trying to do new things and take on a little bit more risk in terms of your behavior, guess what? It's only going to work for so long. And then you're going to fall right back to where you were. This is why people end up looping for years without ever really getting anywhere, because they're not addressing the whole system. You have to work with your behavior and the way you're thinking about something and the feelings that are going on in your body. You see, a lot of the original kind of cognitive behavioral therapy really focused up here on the mind. And then these days we have more of this somatic shift that is going to the body. Self-help was notorious for focusing on behavior. And the reality is you have to focus on all three. And this is what keeps people stuck. They try to change the behavior, but your thoughts are still the same. You try to update your nervous system and your body, but you're still doing the same behaviors. So all the work you're doing on your body is getting erased within a couple of weeks to a month because your behavior never changed. And you're just circling it and circling it and circling it and getting super frustrated. You should now have some more understanding, and I hope this relieves some of the frustration you have. And you stop focusing on all this little stuff up here because it's not going to help you move on. You're just going to keep spinning your wheels. Where you need to put your focus on is on this keystone. You get down to those core wounds, those core beliefs, those core feelings and sensations and the flooding of your nervous system, those core behaviors that make up your keystone trauma. Because if you do that, if you put your time and attention there, you will be able to move forward. You're not broken, you're not failing. You just might be focusing on the wrong things. Because if you start to focus on this stuff and this keystone trauma, over time, what you're going to realize is this right here. Is that it all just comes crumbling down. And what do you notice? Those traumas you were dealing with, or those symptoms, they're all down here. I can't tell you how many things in my life I struggled with for 30 years. Did a bunch of healing work, and they were just gone. Things that I didn't even notice weren't a part of my life for 2 months, and I had to look back and, what's going on? It was very confusing and discombobulating. I just had to chalk it up to, I guess this healing thing might be helping. But I was very focused on those keystone traumas. Now, it doesn't mean that every symptom you have is just going to disappear. But here's what's nice about it. Even these stones that are left up here, right? Let's say you're still dealing with late night eating and you want to change that. Guess what? Because it doesn't have this foundation, it's really easy to walk over and just knock out this brick. That's the other thing that will surprise you, is how much easier it is to move past stuff. I hope this brings you some clarity, helps you move forward, maybe just helps you have a little less frustration with the process. I know how, frustrating it can be and how it just feels overwhelming and like it'll never end. And I wanted to bring you a little bit of relief, or at least I hope that it does. If you are looking for somebody to kind of help guide you through some of this, I do offer one-on-one coaching. And whether it's with me or somebody else, I hope you're getting the support that you need and deserve. So, until next time, my friend, keep trusting your gut, keep trusting your intuition. See ya.